I bring you greetings in the name of the Lord. I want to take a scripture from the book of John chapter 4 verse 19, reading from verse 19. The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship." Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming, and is now here, when true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father is seeking such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth." Now, in the present day church, what we have described and called worship is really not worship. We have limited worship to a thing of just singing and dancing and maybe playing instruments. But we see in this particular passage where the woman, just like in our present time, where we say, "In this place, in this church, I worship. In this place, I worship." It was just like that then. He said, "Our fathers worship on this mountain." It was a thing of pride. He said, "On this mountain, our father did worship." But he said, "You say that in Jerusalem is the place where we ought to worship," which means they had limited worship to a thing of place, either on this mountain or on that mountain, as we have in our present time, where we actually see people say they are going to seek God, and they have to travel miles and miles away to climb up to a mountain, into a mountain where it's like that place had been concentrated, where they can actually reach God. However, Jesus now said to the woman, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain or in Jerusalem," or in other words, it is not about the place. It is not about the things that you've created. It is not how far you travel. It's not when you say Orioke, when you say you name the name of a particular church or place where you worship God. They say, no, that is not what is. It said the hour is coming when it will no longer be like that. In other words, there is a new kind of worship that the Father is seeking. There is a new level of worship. There is a crop or a new generation of worshippers that God is looking for. And these worshippers, when they get into that place of true worship, it will no longer be about a place. It will no longer be about a people. It will no longer be about a kind of music or songs. It's actually the person that they are, which means they are stepping up in the spirit to begin to commune with God, to have a contact with a personality. He said, you worship, you see, when you do things this way, when you begin to look for places, when you have to climb up mountains to worship God, or you are worshiping a God that you do not know. And that is why a lot of times when you go to these places, you actually seek men to tell you about the God that you are supposed to be worshiping. You need men to give you or to tell you things that this God is talking about. But that's not how God intended worship to be. The worship that God is seeking is a worship that has to do with his person, you knowing him for himself. And Jesus was saying here, he said, look, you do not know the God that you worship, but we know the God that we worship. He said salvation is of the Jews. However, he now said, but the hour is coming. The hour is coming. And even now, that hour has already come, when true worshippers are those who will worship the Father in spirit, which means we are talking about climbing up into a different realm, leaving this place of carnality, this place of the flesh, this place where you are so conscious of the things around you. Most of the time, even when we come into God's presence to say we want to worship God, we are worshiping God because we are already connected to something that we want to get from Him. This is not the worship that God is seeking. He said, the hour is coming, and now that hour has come. We have entered into a time when true worshippers are those who will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. What does it mean in spirit? What it means is that you are shifting from the place of connecting with the atmosphere around you into connecting with an atmosphere that is outside of this world, an atmosphere that is outside of your consciousness, an atmosphere that is outside of the terrestrial. You are now connecting into the celestial atmosphere. You are connecting into a realm where you can commune in reality with God. You can behold God face to face. You can actually come in contact. You can come, having an encounter with the personality of who God is. He said, these are the people whom the Father seeks to worship Him. He said He is seeking such men. And He said, God is spirit, and they that must worship Him in spirit and in truth. What it means is this: I can't commune or connect with the Father if I remain at the level of flesh. The only time I can commune and connect with the Father is when I take on His nature. What is His nature? His nature is spirit. He said He is spirit, and anyone that must connect with Him, have communion with Him, must climb up to that realm of spiritual communication. It's a spiritual walk. It reminds me of the passage that says, if we live in the Spirit, we should also walk in the Spirit. It is only at this level that we begin to relate with the Father, because it takes the Spirit to commune with the Spirit. They said, the deep calleth unto the deep. The deep cannot call unto the deep when we are walking on the level of having a shallow relationship with God in carnality. Our minds are so filled with all manner of things. We are conscious with the environment around us. We can't say that we are walking in the Spirit that way. Any man who walks in the Spirit, of course, they no longer commune with just the physical things, but every physical thing that they come in contact with reveals a spiritual aspect of God, reveals a spiritual aspect of the personality that they were created to relate with. And God is calling us to that point where at this present time, it is no longer about place, it is no longer about personality, it is no longer about music. It's going beyond all of that. God is asking us to come to a place where we can sit with Him face to face, having a discussion, becoming whom He is. 2 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 18 puts it this way. He said, as beholding in the glass. He said, as we behold in the glass, looking at something, there's an image that we are beholding. He said, we are transformed into that same image that we are looking at. You can't attain that level of relationship when you are still worshiping God in the flesh, the way we do it. We just sing songs and we get ourselves excited and we say we have worshiped God. That is not worship. When you say you are worshiping God, you are supposed to have a deep fellowship, a deep communication. You are reaching out to a spirit being. Your spirit, it's like there is an inward well up. There's a welling up from deep within you that begins to relate, reaching out to your Father who is above. Now, when you behold God like that, He said, as in a mirror, we behold this image and we are now transformed into that same image. Just imagine when you get to that point where, as you begin to behold God, His presence now sucks you in and you get into God and you begin to relate with God from that angle. Just imagine by the time you leave that place, you don't depart from such a presence. You'll find that even after you leave, you are still carrying on that presence because He has sucked you in. You have become all that He is. He has saying he has poured himself over you, and he begins to brood over you. He is transforming you. Your life is changing. Everything in you, it's like you hit a depth that connect with something that words are simply not enough to explain. That is the level that you get to. You find that sometimes you just stand there, you don't have words to say, you don't have any song to sing. All you want to do is to just commune with him, the deep calling to the deep, and you are becoming more of him, and you just know what he's saying, even when he's not saying anything to you. When we begin to relate with God like that, I tell you, the atmosphere that we are in, the presence of God, the life of God that has sucked us in begins to transform and change that atmosphere. Any man that walks into that place immediately connects with that spirit. How many times have you been in a place where you say we are worshiping God? You actually connected with God. But you see, when we begin to worship God in spirit and in the reality of truth, what does it mean to worship God in truth? What it means that there is nothing, there is no guile. You just come in the fullness, in the emptiness. You throw yourself into his hands with reckless abandon. When you begin to walk with God in that realm, I tell you, you will begin to command the presence of God wherever you go. You are carrying that presence into any place, any gathering that you get into, and you easily connect people, because once they see you, when they come into that atmosphere that had been created, they easily connect with the realm of the spirit that can be battered in that place. I pray that even as we begin to stay on God, as we begin to worship God, as we begin to look up to God, to say, God, I just want to know you. I want to love you. I want to see more of you. Father, help me to connect. We can pray that prayer. Father, help me to connect with this place of intense worship where nothing else matters but you. That place where we begin to have definitive encounters, tangible encounters of the personality of the living God, where we begin to see God in a different light. The things that had been hidden before now, they come to light because we are in the bright presence of our Father, where nothing at all is hidden. Everything is made plain. You see yourself just the way you are, the way he sees you. If there are things that you need to let go, it's easy for you to just let go. There are no struggles in that realm when you get into that place, because everything just becomes shadows in the light of the personality of the one whom you are beholding. I pray that God, by his Spirit and by his grace, will get us into this realm where we begin to walk in the power and in the presence of our Father in divine worship, breaking away from all the norms that we have known, all the things that we have been taught, just letting his Spirit carry us into his divine presence, where we are not willing to break away from anymore, even when it looks like it has ended, but we still just know that we are still in the divine presence of the Father. May God help us to walk in that realm in the name of Jesus.